Hello everyone and welcome to the off-season recap. It is officially December 23rd. The Overwatch League free agency window is open and the gates are open and things are flooding out. We have seen some signings that not many of us were expecting. There aren't all the teams making moves just yet. Obviously it is holiday season. Not all of them are going to be doing it off the rip, but we have had some good moves. Before I start talking about the team moves, we need to talk about some interesting rule changes that have come into the Overwatch League as of a couple of days ago. Sean Miller, I don't know why Sean Miller's the one tweeting it out, says, as we look towards the free agency window opening on Friday, which was, this is a couple of days ago, we're excited to share that our minimum age for Overwatch League competition will be 17 starting in 2023. In a free-to-play world, we want to make the top level of Overwatch competition as accessible and inclusive as possible. So, now, all of a sudden, 17-year-olds are available to play in the Overwatch League, which opens the door up for a lot of interesting players to make it into the league. We got Rhino from North American Contenders, Junbin. These are two of players that have really made names for themselves as of late. No one was expecting them to be able to play, but time is coming. I did hear that the teams were aware a little bit more heads up than we were, so that might have changed some roster building. Primarily the Shock, I think, are the ones who are going to get affected by that, but we'll talk about them in just a moment. I'm not in love with, the 17 minimum age. I think 18 was good, as much as it sucks for, players and people who want to be in the league. I think finishing high school is super important in life, and I think it's a really important part of life in general. I know some people will disagree with me, but that's just how I feel about it. But it's kind of industry standard for some, some are moving a little bit lower, but I'm not in love with it, but it is what it is. So don't need to talk about that too much, but it is cool because it opens up a lot of doors for these teams. So let's get into the trades and the signings that have happened so far. Let's talk about the Boston Uprising. I mean, the Vancouver Titans, who is essentially the Boston Uprising, because the Vancouver Titans, this is going to be a long week, have signed Punk. They also signed Crimzo, and they signed Faith. 3 players who are from, the Boston Uprising squad of 2022. Probably some of the best pieces that they have. I've been a big advocate for Crimzo and Punk. I think Boston looked better every single time that they had those guys in the lineup. Even when they tried to bench Punk a million times, it just never stuck. Faith was also a pretty solid main support. It's kind of hard to get a gauge on main support sometimes, but I think Faith was solid. So they have moved to the Vancouver Titans alongside Aspire. So they have good bones to this team. I expect them to be pretty middle of the pack. I don't think they have the best talent in the league, but it's definitely a solid team. An upgrade for what the Vancouver Titans had in the last year. In my opinion, I think it's a more well-rounded team. And I think they have a pretty clear direction of a bit of a mixed roster, but with some, legends of the Western scene in a way. So we'll see this Vancouver Titans roster come together. It essentially will be the Boston Uprising. Will Seeker follow them as well? What other pieces are they going to get to fill this out? They have the back line. They need a tank, maybe a main tank. They have Punk, who can play the off tank. His Winston was okay, but if they want to fill out this roster, I think maybe going with 2 tanks is a good idea, even if one is just going to be the more prominent one. Kind of like what the Atlanta Reign did with Hawk and Gator. They had 2 tanks, but they were very clearly investing and vocally investing more time into Hawk, but that ended up hurting them in the long run because they didn't have that main tank player when they really needed it. So I think having 2 is still a good idea, but you definitely want to invest in one player, and it should be Punk, no Australian bias. And then obviously you need a DPS player alongside Aspire. But I think Aspire's been impressing people year after year since he's come into this league, and he's definitely a big pickup for them. So moving over to the Los Angeles Gladiators. The Gladiators have an interesting thing going on right now. They've signed Lastro, but they lost Shu. Shu went to the Houston Outlaws, and we'll talk about that one in just a little bit. But Lastro gets signed for the Gladiators. So now they have an interesting roster of they have Lastro and Funny Astro and Kevsta signed to this roster. A bunch of the other players, their contracts either expired or their options got declined. So Space, we don't know what's going on with. Reiner, rumors are they're going to Toronto Defiant. We talked about that one in our last video. And then I'm missing one more player. Oh, Happy is also a free agent who is also rumored to potentially be going to the Houston Outlaws. So Gladiators are a little bit of a hodgepodge right now of the Lastro signing is interesting. They lost Shu and gained Lastro, which I think a lot of us would say is a downgrade for the Gladiators. Shu's a great player, considered one of the best flex supports in the league. It's sad that they lost him, but that's what happens when contracts expire, free agency opens up, and with the moves that the Houston Outlaws are making, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Shu who wanted to go to the Outlaws and less so of the Gladiators not wanting Shu. So they get a good piece in Lastro. He has a lot of flexibility. He played Lucio this year, but Lastro in terms of raw mechanical power and just not being Shu, I think is a little bit of a downgrade, but still a good piece to add to the Gladiators. It seems like the Gladiators are having the same idea of what they did last year of a mixed roster with lots of good pieces, just mechanical strength, and then trying to build up from that. So we'll see what happens to the Gladiators over the next week as they start adding more pieces. I think there's a lot of players that are going to want to play for this team. When you have players like Lastro, like Kevster, etc., people want to go there. And historically, the Gladiators have had a big budget to spend. This has been a belt-tightening year, so teams might have changed. Maybe the Gladiators don't have as much money as they did in previous years, but they still look to be making moves in some way. So let's talk about the Houston Outlaws, because this is an interesting team. They've been going on with this intern strategy for the player announcements, which I'm kind of surprised by, but they announced Shu with the trading. Well, it wasn't a trade, it was just two different signings, but Shu is essentially at the Houston Outlaws coming up alongside Pelican, which is a big deal. You know, Pelican is an incredible player. So right now, who's on the Houston Outlaws, chat? Help me out here because my brain is starting to become fudge. They got Fearless as well, was the other player that they signed. So Houston Outlaws, just of today, signed Fearless and Shu, two of probably the best pieces of the teams that they are coming from. Pelly, Fearless, Shu. Is Houston gonna be good? Like, yeah, obviously Houston last year, they were solid, but they were still kind of struggling to perform in the playoffs until the very end playoffs where they had that crazy run with Dante on the Winston. But they might be confidently good, if that makes sense. They have ridiculous players. They did lose Merit very recently to the Florida Mayhem. We talked about that in the last video as well. So they don't have a hit scan to sort of work alongside Pelican, but there's a lot of great players that they can pick up. You know, they need a main support. We have Choron currently in the pool. There's, you know, Chio and Vindame, but you know, maybe not. We'll sort of talk about those guys in a little bit. But there is a lot of really interesting pieces that could be added to make this a super team. You know, there's a few super teams that are starting to form, and Houston Outlaws look to be one of them. When you have big names like Fearless, Pelican, and Shu, people will flock to your team to come play for you guys. So what other moves are the Houston Outlaws going to make is really what I'm keeping an eye on. But it's looking big. And when you have a great coach like Junkbuck and Jake at the helm of this team, anything is possible. So fingers crossed, Houston Outlaws fans, you guys might not actually, things might not be Houstonable anymore. You guys might just be a good team. There is a rumor that Happy might be filling in that hit scan role for Merit. So Merit has gone to the Florida Mayhem. Will they pick up Happy? I think Happy is a great player. I think he's been performing well. I think he did good things for the Gladiators at the end. And I think I would go with Merit, like the rookie who just had a great rookie season on the hit scan, over Happy, you know, this veteran chiseled player, but you're not going to be unhappy when you have Happy on your team. So we'll see how they want to sort of fill out this roster, but for right now, those are the rumors that we have so far. That's actually a good point that Mexter has an important, that is bringing up. Something that we haven't really talked about, and I will not talk about because we don't have any news, is Prophet is still in the pool of players that can be signed. The question is, does Prophet want to come to a Western team? Does he want to come to North America? Does he want to stay in the APAC region? What does the APAC region even look like? We don't know, but keep an eye that Prophet is always going to be available. Where is Dante? Dante is gone. He was cut from the Houston Outlaws, very publicly out. He sort of said himself that he got cut. We don't really know where Dante's going to go. Is he going to stick to tank? Is he going to play DPS? It's all up in the air right now. So let's move onwards. Atlanta Reign. As of right now, we only have one tweet of the new changes adding to their roster. Fielder from the Dallas Fuel has head over to the Atlanta Reign, bolstering this already stacked roster. So the rumors are that Chio and Fielder were going to be going. As of recording this right now, only Fielder has been announced, but it's a pretty safe bet. But by the time you're watching this video, that Chio has also been announced to the Atlanta Reign, which means that the team currently is right now, we got Lip, Stalker, Hawk, Fielder, Chio. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think this is going to be the best Atlanta Reign roster that we've ever seen in just terms of raw power. They've always had like good players and good pieces. Like even last year, you know, we talked about they had this incredible Western team, but there was questions over whether or not these guys were going to be able to perform in the Overwatch League. They've always had some rookies that sort of like holding them back a little bit. They've sort of had some inconsistencies. With Gator moving to head coach and the roster going primarily Korean, I think you will see a very different look to the Atlanta Reign that we've seen in the past, but they have mechanical skill just on a completely different level. So I'm excited to see. The big linchpin for me of this roster is how is Hawk going to function, and like Gator as the head coach going to function with a fully Korean roster. How is that going to play out in the long run for these guys? Because you can't doubt the talent, but as a team, are they going to become cohesive? Are they going to work together well? Only time will really tell. So now the big announcement, because this one came out of, Vigilante too. Vigilante, Fielder, and Chio. Sorry, I forgot about Vigi. He's also on the roster. So they had the double flex support sold. I kind of feel bad for Vigilante because I'm worried that he might not be the primary flex support player. I think you'd always play Fielder, but we'll see what ends up happening with this roster, because Vigi really impressed me in this most recent season. But yes, as I was about to say, this is the big news. Boston Uprising is cooking. And I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I hate it. But the Boston Uprising have signed... This could be... Like, we watched the Overwatch Legends stream recently, and almost all of these players were in some part a part of it, and these guys are all legends of their own right, and they've just sort of been brought together. And if you look at these people on paper, it's a ridiculous team. It's absolutely stacked. Everyone's really excited about it. But the elephant in the room that everyone's talking about, that we're a little worried about, is, you know, you got Striker on the team who's retired like 3 times in 3 years. We have Birdring, who retired last year, you know, after his stint with the Gladiators, went and played Apex, decides to come back. So that's a lot of retirements. Then you add Decay into the mix, someone who is known to be a very volatile player to play with. You know, there's the stuff that happened in Dallas Fuel. You know, obviously had issues with the Washington Justice. The team around him wasn't great. How is this going to function? Is this team going to explode before getting to the finish line, right? That was our question for Washington last year, or like Boston last year as well when they had Striker. This team's probably just going to blow up before it gets anywhere or before it gets off the ground. The good news is they have a good core around them. Lee Jae-gon, Izayaki coming from the Shanghai Dragons. Great players, right? You can't doubt these guys absolutely at all. They have the talent. You know, Lee Jae-gon gets a little spicy sometimes. Izayaki loves to be aggressive in their own right, but as a combo, a great backline. And then you have the man at the helm, Smurf, is just a 2-time champion, one of the best tank players to ever do it, has a lot of flexibility, known to be a very vocal leader. Smurf is really going to have to be the grounding force for this team. He has to be the one to keep these guys in line, whip them into shape, and make it work. They also announced their assistant GM in Supreme, who was the head coach of the Washington Justice, just to sort of make it feel really justicey. You know, Pre and Supreme getting the band back together after a horrific 2 years. But they have Dong Soo, who I actually worked with in 2019 in the Valiant. He was, Korean assistant coach at that point, worked with Moon. He followed Moon to the Shanghai Dragons when that whole transition happened. He is now getting his shot as a head coach. He's a really smart guy, has great understanding of Overwatch. I think he'll do a good job, at least, of keeping up with these players in terms of in-game. Can he handle Striker? Can he keep Decay in line? Can he stop Birdring from leaving us once again? Birdring, please don't leave us again. We will see. And that's really the big question that a lot of people have, because the talent is there. Mitch, I know you're yelling at your monitor. I don't know if you're watching this, but I know you're yelling at your monitor. The talent is there. It really is. But can they keep it on the rails is really the big question. If this team starts to stumble, starts not getting the results that they expect, can they stop these players from sort of internally exploding? Time will tell. Bring Laurie back. Do not bring Laurie back. I'm excited to see a completely new team. So, the next big news that hasn't been announced but is rumored, and this is very relevant to the age change, going from 18 to 17, is this is a Ballsack Esports announcement. So, Shock fans, before you should stop pumping your fists right now. This isn't official. This is rumored. A lot of people, back up these rumors. It makes a lot of sense, but this isn't official yet. Ballsack Esports is getting some relevance in my in these videos right now, but they are saying that Junbin, Max, he's saying, and Vindame from the Seoul Dynasty are going to the San Francisco Shock. This would make a lot of sense. It fills in a lot of the holes that the Shock currently have. He's saying going alongside Proper. We always expected that. They played great in O2 Blast. They would only need a hit scan player to sort of go next to them. Prophet from the O2 Blast is currently of age now as well, with it being reduced to 17. Could see him come in to be the hit scan player. Sort of that could be a good 3 DPS combo. There's obviously, a lot of playtime and experience there. Or they could decide to go another direction. There are some other good hit scans available right now. They are signing the 2 rookies with Junbin and Max, potentially. Junbin only just recently of age for the Overwatch League because he is 17. Absolute mad gamer. People were expecting to wait one more year for him. But then you have Max coming alongside. They're playing the main tanks. They got the off tanks. That would literally be the most solid tank line that you could ever have. They are rookies. You have to keep that in mind. A lot of these guys are going to be rookies. But hey, we saw what the rookies did for the Shock last year. With great coaching from Krusty, from 9K, I think they can get to the level they need to be. And then even more, you're bolstering out this roster by adding Vindame. Vindame was one of the most impressive rookies that I saw last year for the Seoul Dynasty. He's just mechanically insane for a support player. He showed some flexibility, being able to play some Zenyatta, some flex support, but his Lucio and his aggression, Avril's in chat. He could probably write an entire essay about how Vindame is the GOAT. So the backline would be Vindame, Finn, and Violet. It's a great lineup for a backline. You got the experience, you got the raw firepower. You can make a great support lineup in any meta with those 3 players. So if this comes to be, the roster is stacked and Shock would become the team to beat. I don't know how else you can really phrase this. If this Ballsack Esports report is true, then it's going to be a different level. The San Francisco Shock have announced that on the 26th of December, they are doing this Dallas vs. San Francisco Shock Grand Finals rematch. It's not really a rematch with the old school players. I thought it was. Turns out I was wrong. It's actually going to be the first reveal of the San Francisco Shock roster. And we'll be able to see all these players play. So I would expect something from the Shock in the next few days. Or maybe they'll just announce it on the day as the players come out. I don't know what's happening with Dallas Fuel. That's an important question, point to bring out. They just lost Chio and Fielder. Fearless just went to the Houston Outlaws. Dallas is, I don't know what they're doing. We have no rumors of what's going on with, here's the tweet for San Francisco Shock. I don't really know what Dallas Fuel is planning with this. I don't know if they're just sending their old roster. I don't know if they're going to be big announcements for Dallas Fuel in the next few days. But currently right now, they're bleeding players. If they can retain like Hanbin, Sparkle, Edison, and then grab a good backline, there are some good supports still in the pool they could absolutely grab from. So we'll see what ends up happening with Dallas. But right now, they're losing some of their best players piece on piece. So hopefully they don't go too budget and just sort of like sign a team that is a shadow of what the roster that just won the championship is. To give context of the San Francisco Shock roster as well, Avril actually had a really good tweet after O2 Blast recently won the Pacific Showdown, another big contenders tournament. This sort of summarizes how good this O2 Blast team is and how good the players that are being promoted into the Overwatch League are. It's kind of like runaway vibes from 2019 when they became the Vancouver Titans and, people are like, they're just not Overwatch League caliber, First ever contenders Grand Slam winner. 31 match win streak. They've won 31 matches in a row. 583 days since they last lost a match. 76-14 map record differential in 2022. They've won 7 championships in the last 8 tournaments. They've had a dynasty running since 2020. This team has been absolutely incredible, and the Shock is absorbing that as time goes on. So there is good levels of player coming in, and it's not like they lost Proper and then the team fell apart or anything like that. We know how great Proper is. He's our MVP. He's our Rookie of the Year. Yet still, without him in their roster, they kept this dynasty going. So keep an eye out on these players on this team. These are all the players that are currently on the roster as of right now. So obviously Max and Jumbin as the tanks. He's saying expect to come through. Prophet is the hit scan that I was sort of talking about. He's 17. Bliss is a good support in the lineup as well. I don't know how old he is. He's 17 as well. So he's actually about to turn 18, so he would have been eligible anyway. So there's great pieces there. I'm curious to know if they're going to grab any of the coaches from this team to replace Casaurus. Obviously, the Casaurus rumor and the Toronto Defiant rumor is still going on. We believe that everything is still pointing to that direction, that the Toronto Defiant will become American Tornado 2.0 in a way, and those players are all going to rally from these different teams. So that's everything that we know as of right now. It is 3:30 p.m. PST on the 23rd of December right now. There should be a lot more announcements coming through. I don't know how many more are going to be happening over the next few days, with it being Christmas in 2 days. So keep an eye out for those. I'll probably be co-streaming the event between Dallas Fuel and San Francisco Shock, probably with Avril, if that all comes together. And then I'll be making another video in about a week where we re-summarize everything that has happened, as I'm sure more changes are going to get announced as time goes on. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you guys think below. Do you think San Francisco Shock is the team to beat? What do you think is happening with the Dallas Fuel? What are you expecting? Let me know. Love you all. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy holidays.